Welcome back to part 2 of making a character sheet using TTRPG Sheets. If you haven't seen part 1, I'd recommend watching that first, but let's jump right back into it. I'm duplicating the proficiency widget we made last time to make speed and initiative widgets. I forgot to do this initially, but remember to remove the PB tag name from the duplicated widgets so the automatic calculations don't get messed up. Now, I'm going to make an armor class widget that looks like a shield using the polygon widget. With this widget, you can add points and drag them around to make your own custom shapes. What I usually do is place the points roughly where I want them, then edit the numbers themselves to make it line up exactly. Once I've done that, I'll add an input widget and remove its border to make it flush with the shield design. I'll also add a box and some text that says AC. Next, I'll make a weapon widget that you can duplicate whenever you need to add a new weapon. I'll add a box first, then a text input that I'll remove the border of. Make sure you type something in the input or add a background color or something before removing its border so you can keep track of it. This input was for the weapon's name, and I'll make one for the 2-hit bonus and one for the damage dice. I'll also make one for the damage bonus, separate from the damage dice, so we can auto-populate it based on the relevant ability score. But how will we know which ability score to use? I'm going to make use of the expander widget to hide an ability score dropdown, a proficiency marker, and a description box so we can set and view this information without it taking up too much space on the sheet. To do this, I'm first adding another background box on top of the original box, and then removing the top section of its border to make it look like one big box. Then, I'm adding an ellipses that can be clicked on to hide or reveal this extra box. I accidentally put it in a multi-stage widget, but you're going to want to drag over an expander widget and put the ellipses inside the smaller box. Whatever you put in this smaller box is what you can click on to expand the expander widget. This box has 2 stages, one for when the expander is hidden and one for when it's revealed. I want it to be the same for both stages, so I'll just copy the ellipses and add it to the second stage as well. Then, I'll move the big box part of the expander widget so it surrounds the box without the top border that we made earlier. I'll save the widget and click on the ellipses to make sure the expander is working how I want. Now, I'm going to do some setup for the ability score dropdown I want to add to the weapon widget. I'm going to add a table that contains all of the ability score bonuses and hide it behind the skills widget again. Don't forget to name the table before you hide it. Back to the weapon widget, I'm going to use the select box widget to create a dropdown. It will have 6 options that go from strength to charisma. Make sure that you number the drop-down values in the order of the ability scores in the table we just made. For example, since I put strength first, I'll make sure the str display name corresponds to a value of 1. This will make the future automatic calculations simpler. Next, I'll add a proficiency marker that will determine whether the proficiency bonus gets added to the to hit bonus. I'm doing this by dragging over the proficiency marker widget we made in the last part, then removing the 2 extra stages for expertise and half proficiency. Now we can make the automatic calculation for the to hit bonus. First, we'll get the correct value from the proficiency table by using the proficiency marker's current stage as the row number. Then, we'll add the correct value from the ability score table by using the dropdown's current value as the row. Make sure to use numeric tags so the numbers are added together rather than concatenated. I'm going to copy and paste these tags so I can check if the cumulative value is positive or negative. If it's positive, I'll add a plus sign. You could create an input to store the intermediate value to make the calculation less repetitive if you want, like we've done before. I'm also adding a text box to act as a weapon description. Now for the damage bonus calculation. This is similar to the to hit calculation, it just doesn't include the proficiency bonus. And that's the weapon widget. Since everything was a text input, you can just duplicate this whenever you want to make a new weapon and be able to customize it without opening the editor. Next, let's make a widget that can track HP, temp HP, and hit dice. We'll use a big text input for the current HP, though you could use a number input as well. Next to it will be the maximum HP. I'm adding a smaller input that'll layer over the current HP widget to represent temp HP. The maximum HP widget will also get a smaller input to represent a temporary increase to the maximum HP for spells like Aid. Next is the hit dice. I'm making this box a bit bigger to accommodate situations where you have multiple dice types for your hit dice, like when you're multiclassing. The big input can be used for hit dice that you still have available, and the smaller input can be used for your maximum hit dice. It can look a little funny having just one type of hit die in there, so you can always go back and edit the widget to make it smaller or bigger depending on if you're multiclassing. I'm going to make a saving throws widget by taking parts from the skills widget that we've already made. This isn't anything new really, just remove the extra stages from the proficiency markers and make sure you rename everything so the automatic calculations work properly. I'm going to rearrange some of the widgets we've made so there can be a place for a character's name, class, level, etc. I like to call this a nameplate widget. You could use a couple text inputs or just plain old text widgets for this. Now it's time for a fun bit of flavor. Since I've been styling this sheet with a sort of techie look, I'm going to make the inventory, notes, and other large chunks of information into an interactive console. The idea is that you can type in a word, press enter, and the corresponding page will be shown. I'm starting off by making a big box, then adding a long box along the bottom. I'm adding an arrow on the left side of this box to make it look like a terminal, then I'm adding a text input off to the side that you can actually type in. I'm adding a text box that will fill up the rest of this big box and contain information we want to access. To make the console functional, I'm going to be using a multi-page widget. I'll remove the two smaller boxes that would usually be used to change the current stage, and place the big box of the multi-page widget around the text box. I'll add some text to use as a page title, and fill out the text box a bit. This will be a help page that lists all the possible quote-unquote commands. Next, I'll duplicate this stage a few times to create an inventory, notes, and skills and proficiencies page. Now it's time to set up the automatic calculations. For the text input at the bottom, I'll give it a name and also clear it whenever it's updated. Make sure this widget is above the multi-page widget by shift-clicking the Send to Front button. When an automatic calculation is triggered for multiple widgets at once, the widgets further back are dealt with first. Since we're clearing the input, we want the multi-page widget to go first, so it still knows what page to go to. For the multi-page widget, the calculation is a little repetitive, but it gets the job done. I'm just using a bunch of if statements to check if the text input is a specific word, and if it is, it sets the current stage to a specific number. And that's our character sheet. There are a couple things missing, like death saves and spells, but you should now have all the skills you need to go and make your own widgets. Happy creating!